Good to see you. Today, I picked two topics from this book. So I just want to make sure that Carla and Rose, who I don't think have ever attended this class before, it's a book in Hebrew, but I make source sheets in Hebrew and English, obviously. That's why I spend time making source sheets, because I don't think you'd know the Hebrew. It's a book by Reb Chaim Navon, and it is called Teku, which means Tishbi Yitaretz Kushiot Ve'Shelot. The what? Not abayot, bayot. I don't know, but it's who is Tishbi? Eliyahu. Well done. Yes, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi. So what it says is that in the future, when Mashiach comes and Eliyahu Hanavi will appear, he will answer anything that we don't have an answer to, and it has become a way of saying this is unresolved. When is teku? I've said this a few times. When is it used in modern Hebrew? Not a game. A tie game. A tie game in soccer or basketball. Usually it's soccer, not so much in basketball. A tie game is called teku. You say teku shtayim means tied at two. That is how it is used. It is absolutely used in sports context as a teku. I mean, you could use it in other contexts as well, but it's 100% used that, and it means that they're tied. Okay, cool. So the whole thing that I want to tell you is we often discuss when we talk about the two sides of the debate. So we often discuss what we think. But I can't tell you the answer, because that's the whole point of the book, is that these are unresolved debates, that there is no actual resolve, often because we have people of the same weightiness and stature in our history who hold one side and the other side, so there's no way to actually resolve it. Now, I don't know if that's important. Is it important to resolve everything?
Well, most people feel that it is.
Speak up.
They want to know what the decision.
Vivian feels that most people think it is important. They want to know what the
comfortable with.
right. Nice. Not comfortable living in that tension. Anybody? Oh, that's interesting. Anybody else have a thought about that? Yeah, Milton.
A little mystery is good.
A little mystery is good.
It gives both sides of the teku a feeling that they're right and they haven't been
proven wrong.
Yeah,
they haven't been what? What was the word you were going to say?
Well, in a negotiation, for instance, you negotiate to buy something. Let's say in the shuk,
right? Haggling,
right? And when the price of something is what you're willing to pay for, you still want to haggle. But the other side, who is selling, they don't want to be friars. I think that word was
taken advantage of. Yeah. But that's not exactly what this is. Would you say that that's similar to what we've been discussing? Because we're discussing more, usually, not always, existential, philosophical, historical, political, things like those are the kinds. I don't think we've come up yet with a halachic debate, meaning what is the Jewish law? I don't think so. But we've discussed things that are more existential, they're more philosophical, existential, political, what other word? Historical. But historical from the point of view, not of what sometimes it's of what happened, but often it's about, was this a good thing or a bad thing? So one second, Ruby. First Judy and then Ruby. Judy.
First of all, I'd like to say, isn't there a term, cognitive dissonance, that describes when, you're uncomfortable about not having something resolved?
I don't know if that's what cognitive dissonance is. I thought cognitive dissonance is that you're doing one thing, but you want to do something else, or I don't know.
You might be right.
I don't think that's cognitive dissonance, what you're talking about, that it's that your inside and outside somehow don't agree. This is different. These are debates. These are actual debates. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
My next question is, right now, in the current events in Israel, with what's going on with, they don't know, what's going to be with Gaza, and, whether they need to have a ceasefire and all of this, a lot of lack of resolution. Would that also be under this or not? Under the theory of...
So I think you're talking about how to resolve a problem. This
right.
Is about debates You know, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know. Is it good to have, let's say, historical presidents on our dollar bills? I mean, you can't really resolve that. Either, you know, you might think yes, you might think no. It's more philosophical or political. I don't think so. I don't think so. You're talking about something else. You're talking about resolving a difficult situation. That's not what this book. Are you okay? Do you want a different, you want a different chair? You okay? Okay. This is talking about how we look at something, what our perspective is. That's different. Yes, Ruby.
I feel that if a person is often too definite in their beliefs, it can limit other possibilities in life. It sort of closes the door to possibilities that can arise or that are there.
Yeah, so that I think that is interesting, because then in the debates that we're having, I mean, most of these debates are not crucial to our everyday living. But I think what it does is gives us a window into talking about other things. So does it matter at the end of the day? Maybe, maybe not. But I agree with you, Ruby, that it opens up our mind to thinking, and maybe what it'll do, maybe for people in this course, maybe it'll open up our minds in everyday life to be more open to understanding there are two different sides, or at least two different sides. Hot water is here. So you're going to heat it. Is it hot, or you're going to heat it? Elmer. 15 minutes. Okay. In 15 minutes, we'll take a break. You can go get something hot to drink. Vivian, did you want to add something, or you're good? You're good. Okay. Great. Great. Now let's go into the classical debate. Now in the book, it didn't say anything about, it didn't specifically say these are about magic, but I noticed that both of the topics that I picked for today, because I've started picking two topics. One topic just didn't feel like it was robust enough for a whole hour. So I really have fun picking two topics from the book that to me feel like they have a connection with each other. Turns out the connection today is through magical occurrence, meaning the two topics in some way were used in a magical sense. Although, again, he did not write that in the name of it. I just wanted to tell you, we look cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the perception of contradictory information and the mental toll of it. Relevant items of information includes a person's actions, feelings, ideas, beliefs, values, and things in the environment. Cognitive dissonance is typically experienced as psychological stress when persons participate in an action that goes against one or more of these things. So cognitive dissonance is that you're forced to do something that you don't believe in, that you don't want to do. You're forced to, or whatever reason. So then you have cognitive dissonance because it's so important for you not to do it. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just general classical debates. Okay? I don't think it's the same thing. All right. The first topic that I chose for today is about the name of God. What is the actual name? What is God's name? So before I even continue, is it important for us to know God's name? Is it important to you? Well, don't worry, I'll get to the source sheets. We got time. Wait, no, don't bother. Don't look at the source sheets yet. The people online don't have them yet. Why is it important for us to know God's name? Is it important?
Maybe the name represents what we believe God is.
Do you people online hear Vivian? Or should I repeat her? Not so much. Oh, some people do, some people don't. So Vivian is saying that maybe, say it again.
Maybe the name.
Oh, maybe the name represents what we think about God. How we perceive God. I think that's really beautiful, especially since most people hold that the different names that are given to God each represent a different. Did you see the balloons again?
Yes, yes.
No idea why those balloons come. I never asked them to come. I didn't invite them. And at least once a class, I get balloons. I like them, but I did not ask them to come. I must be saying some sort of a magic word that makes the balloons come. Don't know what it is. So Vivian is saying, would a name represent? I think there is something to that. For example, if you have an organization, the name of the organization is really important to you. Will it represent what the organization means? What is it? What does it stand for? Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate that. Anybody else have a thought about why we might want to know the name of God? Carl with the C. It's Carl with the C from Syracuse, which has a C. That's all I remember.
Tanakh is full of the significance of naming, right?
Oh,
Very-
yeah.
First thing,
That's a really good point.
one of the first things Adam did is give names to all the
Yeah,
animals.
yeah.
We-
Do people online hear Carl?
Yes.
Not so much. Oh, Milton doesn't hear so well.
And Tehillim, right? We say every day, we praise God for giving names to all the stars, that he can give them names. So that,
names have an important role, is what you're saying.
right.
Adam gave name. I think it is important.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, Carl, whether you spell your name with a C or a K. It's part of your identity. I know that if people call me a different name than my name, it makes a very big difference to me. If people say, I won't even say it because I don't like it when people make nicknames out of my name. Some people do. My husband's name is Martin, and I know in America it's very common to be called Marty, but that's not his name. He doesn't like, I mean, I don't know that he makes a big deal about it, but he'll, his name is Martin.
Yeah.
So,
What do people say? How do they pronounce bracha if they can't do a?
so if
chaf?
people can't do bracha, then I don't get upset. That's not their fault. As a matter of fact, Alexa
They say
at
bracha.
home has a lot of trouble. She usually says, oh, hello, Bracha. I said to her, what's the weather before I went out? And she said, hello, Bracha. She can't say the ch. Somebody should teach her the ch. But that doesn't bother me as much personally, unless I'm talking more if somebody says brachi or whatever, or doesn't use my title in public situations. Like that can be something that can feel off, that doesn't make me feel good, things like that. But I think a name, your name that you're given, really you very often identify with. And I think it's interesting as Jews, how we often have both names. We have a secular name and we have a Hebrew name. And some people get called by their Hebrew name and some people get called by their secular name. And people identify with it, that feels good to them. In my family, it happens to be, we were all called by our Hebrew names, but I know it's very often, growing up in America, but I know it's very common in America to use English names and people identify with it. And that, maybe I have an English name, I don't identify with it so much. Okay. So we've spoken, yeah.
One other thought about a name. A name is kind of like an introduction, like when you're meeting somebody, that's the first thing that you say, like, what's your name? My name is, or
Right.
his
It
name is.
identifies you. So
So
I love that, Judy, because maybe it means that when we talk to God, we need to know God's name. How do we turn to God? What do we say? So we could be saying psukim verses, that's true, but maybe we want to have a personal conversation with God. So we want to speak to God. I love that. That's a beautiful thing. Yes, Ruby. Thank you, Judy.
And how often at my stage of life that I recognize somebody, but I forgot their name.
I know. And that doesn't feel good, right?
No, it does not. That's
Here's
when
here's a
maybe I'll
rabbinic,
play that game.
here's a rabbinic tip. You say, remind me of your full name again.
Okay, I'll try that one.
Try that one. Or we just have to be honest and say, it happens to me too, by the way. I know. And I was told, by the way, I'm putting aside lo aleinu dementia or things like that, that as we get older, we just literally have more information stuffed into our heads. So it just makes sense that it's harder to retrieve. And this was taught to me by a neuropsychiatrist or a psychoneurologist, one of the two. So he's done studies on it, which actually makes a lot of sense. When you have a lot more information, many more people you've met, then it's harder to retrieve each one because you have many more overlays and you've filled up a lot of those cells in your head. Okay, so I think there's another reason. So first of all, I like what Carl said also. He said names are all over the place in the Tanakh and people are named and reasons are given. So it makes sense that somewhere we should know God's name. There's something about that. So yeah, did you want to say something? Carl, yeah.
I agree with what I said,
Amazing how that
But-
works.
but given how we have names in Tanakh,
If they were here,
it's chutzpahdik
yeah.
for us because all the places in Tanakh giving a name is a source of power.
Right, so only God could give the names
Right,
to
or
God.
or he can designate someone to give
Nice,
names,
nice.
but for us to
We
give
can't.
God a name
Right.
is
So we're not giving God a name. I agree. We're not. What we're trying to do is see what the sages said or now what names do people here know? Let's throw them out. We know a lot of names for God, I think. Elohim is one.
That's the first one in the Torah.
Elokim and Hashem.
Right.
But ale.
El, Aleph, Lamed, Kale,
Yud K Vav K.
Yud K, Vav K. Yep,
But not as Hashem.
correct. We say Hashem
Right.
because we don't want to say God's name down.
Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei.
Yud K, right? That's what we've said a few times. And then there's also Shaddai, Shakai, Shin Dalid Yud. There's Eheye, Asher Eheye. Who knows where that was?
I am who.
The snare.
Where?
Nice. Who said that?
It's right here.
Wait, who said that? The snack.
Did.
Use it, Judy. 2 points. Yes, at the burning bush, God said that's, which is such a funny name. I will be what I will be. I'm sure there's much more. There's can't remember any of them, but I'm sure that there's many more to that as
What
well.
about
The Mokum.
what?
Hamakom, yeah, Hamakom.
Oh, yeah.
That's another name for God. Yep, and that, by the way, really speaks to attributes. Really speaks to an attribute. I don't know if there's Adonai, right? Adonai, which is the way we pronounce Yud K Vav K, and we don't usually say Yud K Vav Hey because we consider that the holiest name of God. Okay.
What about Kale Elyon?
Yep. El Elyon, Kel Elyon. Yep. That's a well-known. That comes. It's in the Zmirot Shabbat. Baruch El Elyon. People know that.
Yes.
What? Oh, it was also in the Torah. Yeah, it comes from the Torah. Nachon. But people might know it from the singing the Zmirot Shabbat. Baruch El Elyon. But yes, Malki Tzedek. Elokeinu just points to the fact that we can take Elokim and make it possessive. You can't do that to Yud K Vav K. You can say Keli. You can say also there's Tzvaot.
The hosts.
Richard, did you meet our guest from Syracuse?
Yes.
Isn't that cool? Carolyn Rose from Syracuse.
Well, but less snow here, right? Yes.
Ah, nice.
It's cold in Syracuse.
Oh yeah, Syracuse is cold. Wow. How far is it to drive?
250 miles.
Wow. That's a big deal. So tzvaot or tzvakot is hosts, meaning usually tzava. Tzava means army. So that usually has to do with fighting or with army. So those are, I mean, I'm sure there's more names. That's just what we're coming up with on top of our head. Let's go to the source sheet. Just a moment.
Do they have source sheets?
I'm sharing them on the screen. They don't, but I can send a link to it. Some people like to look at it on their own. I just have to find it. Just a minute. No, not there. Just a moment. No. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, 1 second. Let me just first share it with the people on screen. And hopefully they'll see it. Never obvious. Nope. Okay, 1 second. Bring it a little closer in. No, that's not going to work. Sorry, still figuring out a little bit how my Mac works. I need a Mac professional who can teach me how to make it work properly.
Available.
Yeah, okay. Well, you also couldn't figure out that problem, right, Helen? We
One.
need to figure it out. Why sometimes I'm just not able to show the.
Yeah, probably if I was right in front of it, it would work. I could show you then.
If you were in front of it, what does that mean?
We're in front of the computer, it'd be easier to show it.
Well, you don't live here, so that would be a little difficult. I'd be happy to, but you live in Rochester, also not around the corner. Okay. In any case, people can see it now.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Just trying to make it full screen, which I also am not able to do for some reason that I don't know why. I have no idea why I can't make it full screen. All right. So I will make it not full screen. All right. In any case, this
You
is,
know, making that,
so you know,
chat.
I just, when I go up on top, I don't see the green and red and yellow buttons. That's why I can't. Okay. But in any case, you do see that it says Sefer Kuzari. People see it online. You got it? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yes,
Sefer Kuzari. So the Sefer Kuzari, do people know what that is? People familiar with it? The Kuzari, somebody want to say what it is? I think we've quoted it already before a few times. Anybody? No? It's a philosophical work by Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Just one moment, I want to make sure. Halevi, sorry. Yes, thank you. Thank you. See, you already know. Yeah, and he wrote it as a polemic, I think. It's very famous, right? But it was written kind of, I'm just going to drop into the chat because I know, Helen, you like looking at it. Dropping in the Google Doc in case you want to see it. Okay. So he wrote like this. Here are three names of God. Elohim. He says Elohim is God who rules over everything and is all powerful. Adonai, which has the word Adon in it, which means master. So it describes God's mastery in the world. And Yud Ke Vav Ke, that's the most well-known, is Shem Prati. It's the personal name of God. Also Shem Havaya. Havaya comes from being, something to do with how God is in the world, how God presents in the world. So people familiar with these three. As a matter of fact, when we see Yud Ke Vav Ke in the Torah or in davening, how do we pronounce it?
Adonai.
Adonai, exactly. Adonai. So part of that is that we don't know how to pronounce Yud Ke Vav Ke. We have either lost the ability or it's considered too holy for us to actually pronounce it. Okay. So I wanted to show you something nice in the word Yud Ke Vav Ke. If you look at source, it's not numbered, but the second source on the page, if you look, it has 4 letters, a Yud, a Hey, a Vav, a Hey. And those letters make up from the verb of being, lihyot, past, present, and future. It has in it haya, it was, or he was, hove, which means the present or being in the present. And by the way, hoya, if you look at source 2, it says that how will you know, v'yaduki ani Hashem Elokechem, Elokehem, how will they know that I'm the Lord their God? Because hine yad Hashem hoya b'miknecha, is present or active in your cattle, asher basadeh, which is in the field. It's not the right translation. Will cause, I don't have dever, but it'll be, I don't have that in the Hebrew, but that's what it is in the English, that God will cause to be on your flock that's in the field. Okay. So how does that feel to people that the Yud Ke Vav Ke is beginning to sound like it's the most important one? Does that make sense to people?
Yeah, yes.
So can you say more about that? Vivian, what do you want to say about that?
Well, it tells you that God is present always, past, present.
God is present always.
All times.
Yeah.
Not just in certain situations.
Right. So
You're not limited.
not limited. So it's a way of looking at God. And as a matter of fact, if you see that it's said in the pasuk before, it said to know God. How do you know? I'll share again so people can see it. That perhaps knowing God is actually about that. That knowing God is about understanding that God transcends time. Why is it not letting me use the minute? Where's my share screen? Here it is. So remember, if we go to, do people see the source sheet?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it says v'yadu, and they will know that I am Hashem, their God. How will they know that? So it says it's because God's hand is in their cattle. But here's something, you don't have it in your source sheet there. The 4 letters can be combined into different tenses of the verb to be, signifying the past, the present, and the future. This would decipher that to know God, ladat et Hashem, is to possess and preserve the knowledge and belief that God has always existed and will always exist. And in effect, this defines God as being outside of time. Yeah.
Those are the words that God used to Moshe at the burning bush, those 3, right?
All 3? I'd have to look it up. I believe you. Do you want to take a chumash? Did he use all 3? Well, he's the one who said Eheyeh, Asher Eheyeh, but you think he used Hayah, Hoveh, and Yeh? I don't remember. It's
Maybe not,
possible.
no.
I don't want to commit.
Yeah, probably not. Okay.
Possibly. Continuing, modern Hebrew grammarians have added another layer to this definition of God's name based on Hoya b'miknecha. This interpretation of God's name as an active layer of being over the passive state of being there, which we describe. Ladat ki ani Hashem, to know that I am God, not only means I was, I am, and I will be, it also means I have cause to be, I do cause to be, and I will cause to be. So it's not just being, that would be passive, it's also active, because Hoya is an active form of being. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah.
I thought Pa'al is more active, and I thought Hoya only referred to being.
I'm sorry, I'm not following what you said.
I thought everything about Hoya refers to being, and the word like Pa'al or Asa, those kind of words refer to action or doing.
Yeah, but Haya by its very nature means it was. It doesn't mean
right.
to be active.
Right, I was, but
When it stands on its own, it's passive.
I know, but that's what I don't understand. How does he derive the concept of caused? He caused.
Because of Hoya. The word Hoya is, I don't even know which binyan it is. I don't know which one it is. Poel, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, Hoya is an active verb. That is what it means.
That would be a call.
Kal, okay. Well, Pa'al, Haya is Kal. I don't know, but Hoya, again, it's according to this interpretation, it is actively, well, actually, even according to the Pasuk, it's actively in your cattle causing dever, not your cattle, but the Egyptians, causing dever. So I'm not sure, Judy, what your question is, if you could be more specific.
I just don't understand how he gets that from the word Hoya, because I thought Hoya is only regarding being. I don't know where the concept of causing can be understood.
Because the Pasuk says, Hoya be'miknecha.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's why.
Thank
because
you.
The Pasuk actually says, I didn't write in the Hebrew, I copied part of the Pasuk, that Hoya be'miknecha means it's doing something active in your cattle or in their cattle, causing dever. That's where Hoya, that's where it's from.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Great. Any questions or thoughts until here? No. Okay. Then we will continue. All right. So continuing on.
Is the word question?
Yeah.
Is the word Havaya connected to the word Hoveh?
Yes. Havaya is being, Hoveh is present.
I thought Havaya doesn't mean experience, or is that Havaya with a chet?
Havaya with a chet.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Great. No problem. Okay. Continuing on. It turns out that only in the Beit HaMikdash, and there's a whole source for that. I just couldn't bring all the sources, but only the Gemara quotes, I believe it's in the Gemara, it's in the Sifrei, possibly, which is an old midrash, very ancient, that the only, and it brings a lot of sources as proof, that the only place you were allowed to use the Shem HaMeforash, the actual name, the ineffable, what we call the name of God, the one that we don't know how to say. It probably was a way to pronounce Yud Kei Vav Kei, we're not sure. Only, not even allowed in Yerushalayim, not allowed outside of Yerushalayim, only allowed in the Beit HaMikdash. And it says, Mishemet Shimon HaTzadik, when Shimon the righteous died, Pasku milebarech b'shem. They stopped using God's name. They ceased blessing in the name of Hashem, which I thought was so interesting that I went to look up where I'm on page 2 now. Where does Rabbi Shimon, what do we know about Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik that would cause that once he died, you wouldn't be allowed to use the name anymore? So Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik appears in Pirkei Avot on page 2. He appears in Pirkei Avot. Shimon HaTzadik, what I mean, if you look on page 1, I did say he was high priest in the Second Temple period and one of the last members of the Great Assembly. You know what that is? Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. Though the men of the Great Assembly did a lot. They set up brachot, they set up tefillot, they did a tremendous amount. And he was one of the last or the last one. So he was clearly a person of importance. It says in Pirkei Avot that he was from the remnants, one of the last people in Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. And what did he say? Remember in Pirkei Avot, for those who know Pirkei Avot, the way we know anything about people is by seeing what did they say. And often what you say represents who you are inside. So what did he used to say? He said, that the world is standing on these 3 pillars, on Torah, on the avodah, which generally we take to mean avodat Beit HaMikdash, the service in the temple, although today it's prayer. Yeah, what? Somebody say something?
Yeah, Gemilas Chesed.
Right, and Gemilut Chasadim, which interestingly was translated as piety somewhere, but I thought it was more about acts of loving kindness. So that's the way I translated it. I don't know why somebody said piety. So I don't know. Does anybody have an idea why, if that's who he was, why was it that when he died, they decided, now it might not have been having to do with that, but they said that it could have to do with the fact that Anshe Knesset HaGdolah were finished. There was no more men of the Great Assembly. That could be a reason why they stopped being allowed. Why would you stop being allowed to say the name of God? The true name of God, whatever that means. Any thoughts about that?
They were giving kavod to Shimon HaTzadik.
Okay, you're saying they're giving honor to Shimon HaTzadik.
Right.
Get that, but why would you want to take away the possibility of using God's name just in order to give honor to him? Just in order to.
It's almost like remembering Amalek, and you shouldn't forget them. It's like you can't really forget something if you're telling yourself not to forget it.
Wait 1 second. I get that, but here they're saying don't use God's name, that you
Right.
should forget it. So it's the opposite.
Yeah, but if they're aware of the commandment, that is the process of remembering.
Yeah, but Judy, there's no commandment to use God's name. Is that what you're saying?
No, yeah, that is what I said, but I didn't mean that. I mean, it's a practice. If the practice is specifically set aside,
Right.
and the people knew that this practice was ongoing, and then Shimon HaTzadik died, and then the practice stopped because of, like I said earlier, about giving him kavod. Can they not remember out of honor to him that they're not to say the Shem HaMeforash as a act of honoring him or not?
So first of all, I'm not sure why it's an honor to stop saying it. I mean, I'm questioning. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. Why is it an honor to stop saying it, A? And B, what's going to happen is people are going to forget the name. So I'm not sure what the gain is by doing that, Judy.
Well, it's kind of puts it into a special category, and that is like really so special that we can't say it.
Correct. So then why were they allowed to say it until then? I agree with you. And what made them allowed to say it? It wasn't like when he was born, they started saying it, and when he died,
Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Come-
Okay. Keep thinking. Vivian.
I was thinking that Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, they were the ones who represented the high court of the time, and they made decisions. So he was from the last ones, and he said that the world stands on three things: that the Torah, the worship
Service.
in the temple,
Yeah.
and acts of loving kindness, gemilut chasadim. And if you don't have those three, then you can't have real Judaism. This is what Judaism
Are we
stands for.
assuming that when he died, we wouldn't
So
have
when he
real?
died, it was gone. And
Are you sure? Do you
Yeah.
think that when he died, Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim disappeared?
maybe they just weren't doing it. They didn't have leaders. They didn't have the Beis Hamikdash. So there was nothing to hold them. And
No, they didn't have the Beit HaMikdash was still around.
Yeah.
It hadn't been destroyed yet. But we know that we still have Judaism today.
we have, but they maybe they didn't have it on the highest levels and didn't.
And on the highest level.
Yeah.
So I think that comes a little closer to what we're trying to say. I don't know if it had to do so much. I mean, that was my thought, that maybe that was the reason, is because of what he stood for. But I think it might have to do more with the fact that Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, that the men of the Great Assembly were dying out. Yes, what did you want to say, Rose?
No,
That's what you thought as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were the ones who made decisions of judicial things, the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, that was their function. So once there was no more Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, then there was no human way to decide what was most important.
I hear that. So you're saying and first of all, we know that it was created because the Tanaim, who wrote the Mishnah, did actually, they did create law. So it's not 100% true that there was no way.
But they ended a lot of them with teku. They couldn't come to a decision.
I don't think a lot of them were teku. Is that true?
There were many of them that were teku. What do you do about all the teku ones?
Wait 1 second. I feel like we're mixing a lot of things here. I still don't understand why that would bring us to a place where we can't say God's name. What's the connection?
Because we really don't understand what it means.
Because we don't understand what it means. So that, yeah.
The wise people.
We don't have as wise people to understand. So maybe we're saying it with less reverence. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it won't be given as much weight. That seems to be the Rambam. If you look at source 6, he says in the laws, look at source 6, in the laws of prayer, they recite Rambam. Yeah. They recite, I do have source 6.
Yes.
You have a source 6?
Yeah.
Okay. They recite God's name, Yud K Vav K, as it is written. This is what is referred to as the explicit name in all sources. In the country, Medina means outside of Jerusalem. It is read only as Adonai. Remember, it's not read as the regular. Only in the temple is this name of God recited as it is written, well, however it's written, which is weird. After Shimon HaTzadik died, the priests ceased reciting the priestly blessing using God's explicit name. Remember, what does it say in the priestly blessing? Yibarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. Ye'er Hashem panav elecha. Yisa Hashem panav. The second word in each pasuk is God's name. So what it says here, and by the way, he was the high priest. So that's right. We said he was a high priest. That's in the footnote. So why did they stop saying it even in the temple? Remember what we said, that the temple was the only place was loud. And so Rambam says, lest it be learned by a person lacking proper stature and moral conduct. So that feels like Rose and Vivian were getting to finally. So it actually isn't in the end about what he believes in, unless he just represented these 3 pillars as a representation of what the finest of Torah is about. But the fact that he died, it wasn't so much what he believed in. It was more about the fact that Anshe Knesset Hagdolah were on a certain standing, And I guess they felt that maybe people didn't have the proper respect or knowledge, as you suggested. The sages of the early generation would teach this name once in 7 years, only to their students and sons. I don't know what happened to the daughters, who had proven their moral conduct. All this in reverence for God's great and awesome name. Okay, so we've stopped saying it from Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, which, by the way, is even before it's BCE, right? It's before the temple is destroyed. So it's many years we haven't said it. Okay, moving on. Just a minute. Kiddushin Bereshit Rambam, just saying where I am. Morena Buchim, Talmud Bavli. The sages taught, this is source 7. Initially, the sages would transmit the 12-letter name of God to any person. So how many letters are in Yud Kei Vav Kei?
4.
4. So obviously we're not talking about this name. We're talking about a completely different name. We don't know it. We have no idea what that name looks like. Rabbi Yehuda says that Rav says the 42-letter name of God may be transmitted, meaning they only to one who is discreet and humble, stands at least half of his life. I don't know why that was important. And does not get angry, and does not get drunk. I like those things. And does not insist on his rights, but is willing to yield, which, by the way, goes along with, what kind of person you are. And who was the one who said, you said? I can't remember. Oh, Ruby said that it opens up your idea, not willing to yield, this idea that you're willing to open your mind to listen to other people. So obviously, some people say it's a 4-letter word, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but pronounced in some way that we don't know. Some people say 12 letters, some people say 42-letter name. And in 8, look at source 8 on page 3, this is a source in Bereshit Rabbah, which is an ancient midrashic source. If they repent, God will redeem them through the name that is 72 letters. So we have 4, 12, 42, 72. Maimonides, though, says in source 9, every intelligent person, this is the way Rambam always writes, meaning you're not intelligent if you don't agree with me, that one word of 42 letters is impossible. Like, you can't pronounce a word, it doesn't mean anything. No, 42, he says. Look at 9. 42 letters. Source 9. He doesn't refer to the 72, but it was a phrase of several words which had together 42 letters so as to convey a correct notion of the essence of God. So Rambam believed that it was 42, but he said this wasn't his name.
It's like an acrostic.
Like an acrostic. No, I don't think it was an acrostic. No, that's very good, but I think it was the opposite of an acrostic. I think that's very good, right? Who said that? Who's speaking?
I agree.
Who said that you agree? Judy? Right.
Yes.
It's opposite. What he's saying is actually, it's a few phrases put together, like all compassionate, all knowing, all this, da, 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 da. And it made up 42 letters, maybe even the 72. That's what Rambam says. Thank you, Judy. And we go to 10. Rab Hai Gaon does not agree. Rab Hai Gaon says, remember the Gaonic period? So remember, this is how it goes. It was the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, it was the Tanaim who wrote the Mishnah. It was the Savoraim who put together the Gemara, and then it was the Amoraim. Who was first? The Gaonim came after the Amoraim who wrote the Gemara. They're very well respected. Rab Hai Gaon, who, by the way, if you look at the footnote, he was known as the last of the Gaonim in time, but the first in virtues. So we hold highly by him. He would say 23 times on Yom Kippur, Ana Hashem. Remember in Musaf of Yom Kippur, Ana Hashem, Chatati, Aviti, Chatu. Remember that? When they sprinkle and all that stuff? And we do Bekach Hayamone. So according to this, Achat Ba'achat. Right, exactly. So in Yoma is the Mishnah that talks about the Avodah on Yom Kippur. Rav Hai Gaon would say, the Rush, whatever, he's the one who quotes him, would say 23 times Ana Hashem. The name had 42 letters. Remember, we spoke about that, and is found in Kabbalah and known to our sages to say aloud. We found this custom among the Gaonim to say God's real name in the yeshiva. I don't know what the yeshiva was. I guess it was where they sat and they learned. In Shacharit 7 times, in Musaf 7 times, that's 14. In Mincha 6 times, that's 20. Ne'ilah 3 times. Sounds familiar? This is what we know. 23 times they would say this word of 42. So remember what I told you at the beginning. It's not about resolving the debate. Was it 4 letters? Was it 4, 12, 42, 72? Rambam says it wasn't his name, God's name. It was phrases that was put together. It's not about resolving the debate between Rambam and Hai Gaon. We're never going to resolve it. We don't know, right? We don't have Rambam. We don't have Hai Gaon. We have nobody to resolve it. But it's about learning, right? We learned a lot. We see that it's referenced in different places. We see that it was used. And we wonder its power of magic because there is a teaching, and I didn't bring it, that the Maharal of Prague, how did he get the golem to be alive? He put, I should find the source for that. He put the name into the golem's mouth or something, and that's what made it come alive.
But
Yes, Carl.
you just taught us before that there's a Tosefta
Yeah.
that says they stopped using God's name.
But maybe somebody, and when did the Maharal of Prague live? You're right, but
We have the Hagon and
Hai Gaon. No, but they still could refer. Yes, that's true. But maybe, it's an interesting question. But maybe Hai Gaon was just saying what it used to be in Yom Kippur. Because remember, when Hai Gaon lived, there was no more temple. So he was just saying what it was. So the argument is, which is the real name? What's your real name? Is it? So I don't think he was quoting that they do it now. I don't know where the Maharal of Prague, but maybe there was a secret sect that passed it down, and the Maharal knew it. I don't know. Do I believe in the Maharal of Prague and his golem? Do I know? It's a great story. When I was in Prague, I bought a little. Do I know if that's what he looked like?
Who have been in Prague was, and they have a big statue.
Yeah, big statue of Maharal of Prague. Okay.
Right in the middle of the town.
Yep, right in the middle of town. All right, friends. Anything to say? Because we have one short thing to add, but Judy, go for it.
My husband is a magician, and he told me that the word abracadabra is abracadabra.
Abra, it should be created, kidabra, as it is spoken. Nice, beautiful. It is true. I didn't know if it was true or not. Beautiful. All right, friends, anything to say? Oh, did we lose Ruby? No, you're right there. Who? We had more people before. I don't know where they went. Okay. So everybody got that? We're good till now? We got the first one? Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of magic to the second story. Now, we learned this story. Did we learn this story when we learned about Talmudic stories? We had a whole year or more than a year on that. So I'm just going to tell you the background to the story, then we're going to go into the source sheet, okay? The background of the story is that there was a debate in the, we're going to read it, Carl, I promise you. There was a debate in the yeshiva, right, in the wherever it was that they all met. And these were Tanaim, I believe. I believe those were Mishnah. Those are pretty high level by us. They're the ones who had all these debates. And we find the story, though, in the Gemara, because the Mishnah doesn't give us long stories usually. It just gives us the succinct. So I think Rabbi Eliezer, I should look that up. If Rabbi Eliezer, if they were Tanaim or Amoraim, if somebody wants to look that up, that's fine. No, I don't remember right now. I thought they were Tanaim, but I could be wrong. So the thing is that there was an argument about Tanur Shel Achnai, the oven of a man named Achnai, which, by the way, also means serpent. So we don't know if that was just a code name for him. Not that it matters, really. And Rabbi Eliezer, who was very, very, very knowledgeable, and Rabbi Yehoshua, I think, they argued. One of them said it can receive. Wait, 1 second. 1 second. It had to do about receiving tum'ah. Can this oven be kashered out of the tum'ah or not? So there was a whole debate, and the reason it was important was because it had a lot of ramifications for other kelim, other vessels. But the important thing that I want to tell you here is the magic that went here. So let me share. This debate is called the debate, is it in the hands of people or in the hands bidei shamayim?
Is it not in heaven started?
Not in heaven. That's it. So a lot of people know it. This is not a new one that I made up. It's very well known. But here I want to start with this. The Hammurabi Code, if you look, and there was a man named Hammurabi who came up with this code, 18th century BCE. If a man is suspected of sorcery, he must pass the river test. I'm on the 4th page. He is thrown into the river. If he wait, did I share the screen? Yeah. If he sinks, that's proof of his sin and his just punishment. If he lives, that's proof of his innocence. Great. But for women in the Middle Ages, the test was more macabre. If the woman sank, that meant she did not have the power of witchcraft to save herself. Of course, she died. And if she was saved from drowning, that indicated she was a witch and therefore deserved to be put to death. In either case, she died. So, horrible, right? So this is showing, according to the Hammurabi Code, that it's called Bidei Shamayim, that it's heaven who decrees who is going to decide whether this person, right, either they sink or they don't sink, so that decides the witchcraft. But in Bava Metzia, we have the story, and here's the thing. Rabbi Eliezer tries to convince the rabbis that he's right. What does he do? He failed to convince the rabbis logically. So Rabbi Eliezer said to them, if the halacha is in accordance with my opinion, this carob tree will uproot itself, will prove it. And the carob tree uprooted itself from the place 100 cubits. Some said even 400 cubits. That's a long way. It's not like it just toppled over to the side. It literally moved. So the rabbi said to him, you cannot cite halachic proof from the carob tree. Now, I would imagine that if I created, if I did magic that felt like real magic, that people would be convinced. It sounds like God is on my side. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, okay, if the halacha is in accordance with my opinion, the stream will prove it, and the water in the stream turned backwards, began flowing in the opposite direction. Nope, they said this, you cannot cite halachic proof from a stream. So he said, if the halacha is in accordance with my opinion, the walls of the study hall will prove it. The walls of the study hall started leaning, began to fall. Rabbi Yehoshua, that's who it is. It's between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua, both great, great scholars. Rabbi Yehoshua scolded the walls and said to them, if Torah scholars are contending with each other as a matter of halacha, what are you butting in here? Stop it. So the Gemara relates the walls did not fall because of kavod, honor of Rabbi Yehoshua, but they didn't straighten because of deference to Rabbi Eliezer, and they remained leaning, which is still pretty cool. Rabbi Eliezer said, if the halacha is in accordance with my opinion, heaven will prove it, meaning a bat kol, a heavenly voice. A heavenly voice came out and said, why are you arguing with Rabbi Eliezer? The halacha is always according to Rabbi Eliezer. He knows the best. Rabbi Yehoshua stood on his feet and said, Lo b'shamayim hi. It is not in heaven. Meaning you cannot decide halacha according to heavenly. The Torah was given to Mount Sinai. We do not follow. Rather, it goes according to majority. Acharei rabim lehatot. Whatever the majority opinion is, it doesn't matter. It is in our hands. Since the majority of rabbis disagreed with Rabbi Eliezer, the halacha is not ruled according with his opinion, and the Gemara relates years after Rabbi Natan encountered Elijah. By the way, Elijah is the same Elijah of this Teku, and said to him, what did God do at that time when Rabbi Yehoshua said what he said? And Eliyahu said to him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu smiled, I love this, and said, my children have triumphed over me, nitzchuni banai. My children were right. My children were right. Meaning that even though God had decreed, so to speak, that Rabbi Eliezer was right, it doesn't matter. It's in our hands. So we have here two sources that show how God's name somehow, or we can evoke God's proof in this world with magic because the name of God was used to do magic. But in the end, it's in our hands. Two completely different arguments, but they go together because something about having magic be in our realm as well. That's why I brought them both. So two completely different ones that I thought had a connection, and I really enjoyed learning about them.
Over here on page 4.
On page 4, Vivian is speaking, 1 second.
Page 4,
Yeah.
that whole conversation.
Yeah, the whole conversation in the Gemara.
That they needed to assert the power of the rabbis.
Yeah.
They need, because that's what would sustain Judaism.
Correct. 100%. And actually, this connects very nicely. Thank you for saying that. I totally planted her so she would connect it. This connects beautifully to, not true. This connects beautifully to Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik. Remember when we said he stopped, so they stopped using the name of God, but the rabbis had the power to continue. We did not lose Judaism, even though we lost using the name of God, which could evoke such power. Beautiful. Yes, it had to be reinvented. We had to reinvent Judaism, 100%. Yep. How do we sustain it?
How
Yep.
do you sustain Judaism in the diaspora? in America.
Right. This is how we
Yeah,
sustain it,
I
by
mean,
learning
yeah,
Torah.
I mean, you have to say it.
By
It's in the
WhatsApp
hands
groups,
human
actually.
beings, of the
Lots of
rabbis.
WhatsApp groups with Israelis.
One other thought. The
Yes,
word,
Judy, thank you,
the
Vivian.
word rabim can also be understood to be rabbis, not just majority.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
Ravi, maybe.
Like if I have
yes.
a
Interesting.
question about
I
Judaism,
like
So,
that. It's a
so,
sect.
so things go according to the majority and to the
Okay,
majority.
it's unusual to do that, but I hear
Maybe,
what you're saying. I
maybe
think Rav is Rabbanim. I don't think you can do
right.
Rabbi.
You're probably
I
right.
hear
Yeah,
you. It is the same source. That's nice.
right.
All right, my friends, this was lovely, lovely
Thank
to
you.
learn with you. Really enjoyed. Thank you for coming on as always. And those who wish, there's a class in Hebrew tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you much.